Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Voxcaster. I'm your host, Dan, and on today's episode, Kier's jumping on board and we're throwing out this episode 2 of Khorne Faction Focus.
Absolutely. Happy to be back for round two, man.
Yeah,
Should be
we're going to be
fun.
talking a whole lot of blood and a whole lot of axes and whatever else Khorne loves. But
Honor.
before we jump into that one, I just need to take a couple of seconds to say a huge thank you for JT on Play on Tabletop and Dave from Mini Wargaming to who have bestowed upon us that giant chaos bomb earlier in the week that just absolutely blew my mind. Just to see what people in this community do, just people listening to another podcast and just being like, "Hey, go check these guys out." And in a matter of 1 hour, we gained. I think we went from 87 views to over 500, and at right now, I think we're at 618 last time I checked. We jumped 40 subs up to 94, and just the amount of comments just blew my fragile little mind. I can't say thank you enough to everybody listening to this episode right now, the people that took a second, listen to the last episode with JT and Play On. And just yes, just a huge thank you to everybody with Dave on Mini Wargaming. I can't stop thanking people because again, we're a small little channel, and just to see this one giant boost was just a nice breath of fresh air. So again, thank you to all you guys, and hopefully we can keep pumping out content that you guys are going to really enjoy and keep you guys coming back, and hopefully telling your friends to keep coming back and watch us. So from this point on, I'm going to plug out the crap of please like our videos if you enjoy them. Leave a comment on stuff that you enjoyed, or hey, maybe ideas of something else you would like to see later on. And yeah, just like, subscribe, enjoy, have fun, and just join us on the ride on the future episodes. So let's jump right into this. So last time we left off, I do believe Warp Talons and Raptors are the last thing we kind of touched bases on. So we're going to jump to the rest of the Chaos book. And if it doesn't take us another hour and a half to do 5 or 6 models, because when we talk, we talk. The goal will be to finish up this book, and then we're also going to jump over onto Faith and Fury, and we'll go through all the stuff there that World Leaders had. So, jumping right into it, Chaos Spawn. Experience Kier. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you like them? Do you not? What do you like? Or not like?
Uh,
Whichever.
well, first off, they just recently had a change to their base size, so they're on 60 mil base, I believe now. So that's a bit different for them. And also, I feel like it's more sensible to talk about them using the Death Guard data sheet, because they did have some tweaks there that are different from the original Chaos book, and I just have to believe that that's where they'll end up. I mean, they're great for what they do. I mean, being able to just take, in simplest form, one single 23-point model, and it just sits on an objective or gets you in, like, there's no efficient way to trade with that. And
Mm.
that's sort of the cheap way to include them in your list. And then you can go the other way with it and just run a bomb, a 5 chaos spawn, and I mean they're prone to being shot down, but
Hmm.
I think the change to terrain has, the tables are a lot denser now, so they have more hope. And then if they get in, they just murder things. I mean,
No,
I
and it's true.
played.
And like you were saying, change of tables where they are smaller too, like they can get there quicker. Because I'm just going by the Chaos book right here, and I can't remember for Death Guard, but they have 7 inch movement. Does that stay true to Death
Yep.
Guard? Okay,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
stays the same. So even at that, you advance them turn one. Chances are you have them ran the line, you run them alongside of a building. Even if you roll 3, 4, you're still going 10, 11. But I would like to see, and again, this is just wishful thinking. If like ever Khorne world leaders get their own book, this and that. It'd be nice to see maybe get D6 +1 attacks or something just for being Khorne, or +1 strength, so like strength 6.
So that is what actually changed with them. So now they've gone to 2d3 attacks. So there's a little less deviation.
Okay.
And the other main change was on their mutated beyond reason, which is where you roll the d3.
Hmm.
The middle profile originally it added 2 attacks to it, and
Yeah.
now in the Death Guard book it adds 3d3
Okay. So 3D3 instead of 2D3. Okay.
instead of 2. It's
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like
2d3.
instead of doing your 2D3, you'll get 3D3 instead. Okay. Hmm. I can see that kind of following suit going into the basic book and world leaders, because I can see that being something strictly for Death Guard. That sounds like a pretty obvious choice to kind of just pass on.
Yeah, and I mean, so even on 2d3, average dice suggest 4 attacks.
Hmm.
which is already kind of where they're at, but there's less whiffing, which you know as well as I do. Dice can be cruel,
Yeah.
and it sucks, right?
Nothing worse than
So
rolling like one on your D6 or whatnot. Like, but I don't know, like if for me, whenever I'm playing Chaos Spawn, I roll 1d6 per model.
yes,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I have actually people saying like they roll the 1d6 and that's it. But as far as I can, when a unit of Chaos Spawn makes this close combat attacks, roll a d3. Again, I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. So I've had people saying that you just roll the 1d6 and that's for the whole entire unit. But then I've
so
had the people also say you roll 1d6 per model.
I feel like they address that in the Mutated Beyond Reason because the wording is until the end of the phase, models in this unit have an attacks characteristic of 3d3. So it says models in this unit.
Yeah, true.
It's not saying
This unit
specifically roll
has.
per. Yeah. So I
Okay.
would say that you would treat it much like Luda's or any anything along that line. I would, my gut is telling me unless it specifically states otherwise,
Mm,
it's the unit's attack
yeah.
profile, right? So anyway, as world leaders, they're great. I mean, they do exactly what you want them to do. They're fast and they punch hard,
Yep.
and they're cheap. I mean, 23 points is like, I mean, what an assault intercessor is like 19 points.
Mm,
This thing has more strength, more toughness, better AP, more damage, more attacks, moves faster. Its only downside is a weapon skill of 4, but
mm. But hey, you never
and
know because you're starting to see like demonic things get better weapon skills as time goes too. So I'm kind of wondering if they'll ever hint towards this because Death Guard, I'm assuming they still have the 4 or did it go to
yeah,
3?
they're
Okay,
still
they
at
do.
4. So I would say that's probably
Yeah,
going to
that
stay.
that'll probably stick around then. But
Um,
the fact that they're beast, they can go through walls just like
yeah,
infantry and stuff like that. That's another huge thing. So like I said, you run them up a flank alongside buildings, and then boom, right there.
yeah, I think they're great. I don't think you could ever go wrong. You
No.
know, I think the only thing that makes them a little tougher to use now is just the increased base size,
Hmm.
because they're basically at the same size as the Demon Prince now. So
Yeah.
that's kind of chunky footprint. But I mean, you can take them in a unit of one, and then just hide it, and
Yep.
and it's annoying. Or you can put it now. Strategic reserves is a thing too. So
And just
you can
drop it on
put
the
them
back
in.
lines for
Sure.
line
I mean,
breaker or
it's
raise
it's
van or deploy scramblers and stuff like that. Because I know that's a huge thing in Drukhari right now. People are running like slits, Urgles, Lamians, and just dropping them
yeah,
in turn 3, turn 4, get scramblers done. If they die,
yeah.
whoop de do 15, 20 points.
They would need the infantry keyword for that, but I
True.
think one of the things you're finding a lot is people. So in your games right now, let's say hypothetically, there's usually two objectives in your zone, two in your opponents, and two mid board, and
Hmm.
and a lot the worst case scenario is hold two, hold three, hold four. So
Yeah.
there's actually not a lot of incentive to go into your opponent's deployment zone. It's more advantageous to try and control yours and take the middle, depending on the army, of course.
Yeah.
So what happens is people end up leaving these little 5-man squads of intercessors and stuff in these back corners and thinking that's their objective now. A squad of spawn
Oh,
will
they'll destroy it.
annihilate
They'll
those.
destroy it.
You have to respect that they are there,
Hmm.
right? And I just think for 23 points they just do
Oh,
so
they
much.
definitely do the work.
Yeah, I mean I think Corn approves.
Yeah. Next one on the list we are looking at are bikes. I've you yourself as a White Scar player, you've definitely dabbled with bikes, so you know what they can do. Myself, I've never used bikes. I own 3. I've never even had them on the table. But in a world leaders list, to give you that extra movement at 14 inches, run up the board. Obviously, there's other viable options rather than the point cost of this. Just again, just more berserkers. But do you think bikes have a spot in a world leaders list?
Yeah, totally. I mean, they offer some shooting
Mm,
that you usually don't get in your typical. I mean, my most of my world leaders lists now start with Zerkers and Rhinos
yeah.
and Butchers and Deep Strike.
Mm,
So now these guys have those bolter shots where if someone's playing something like, God forbid, you get stuck against a guard player and you have to deal with Vengeance Acadia. But,
yeah.
if they have these little 10-man squads, if you're running 3 or 4 bikers, if it's a fast army, these things can take and contest the space way
Hmm.
faster than anything else in your list.
True.
B, their chainsaw just went to neg 1, which is super nice.
No, true. I
Uh,
forgot about that.
um, and I mean, there's not, there's, it's probably the fastest toughness 5 unit you're gonna get, right?
No,
Because
true. Like especially in the book for anything world leader base, it's you definitely have your highest movement to get across the table by being on the table. Yes.
I mean they can move 20 inches, so even if you're running a three-man squad, I think they're also 23 points a model. I want to say
I
I
can't
could
remember
be
what they changed to.
84 for a squad of three, so in or around that.
Yeah.
Uh, Sorry, they're 28 a model,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think one of the things that hurts world eaters is the time it takes them to cross the board.
Big
So,
time.
but I think small three-man biker squads can definitely serve a purpose where they're just harassing units. You just run say two squads of three and just literally launch them at your opponent, and all it's
Yeah.
doing is just taking that space for the rest of your army. You know what I mean? Because if you can, if it, like they auto advance 6 inches, so
Yeah.
that's a 20-inch move. Unfortunately, you don't have a way to advance and charge, but I mean, you're just putting them there. Your bases are in their way with more terrain. They're now blocking lanes, and the shooting any way to get rid of them happens after they've done their movement. So you've
True.
effectively bought yourself a turn to get your
Just
army
stop
closer.
them from getting closer to you in a sense.
Yeah,
Gives you a
and I
chance to get
mean,
across faster. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I really think ninth is sort of shaping into the addition of taking space and owning it. I think you're better off trying to get on those objectives first
Yeah.
and holding them rather than trying to fight your opponent off. Because once they get onto it, now all your deep strike has to stay 9 inches away from that objective. Like
Yeah.
it's just, they play a good game of taking space. And yeah, I think the Neg 1 chain swords and they get the world leaders trait. So they're putting out what 5 attacks off the charge. So I mean,
Yeah.
15 from a squad. Um,
And the thing with world leaders, you're going to need mass amounts of attack to get through because that's what they're known for. But like you
right.
said, you just look at the base profile, then it's like base one. Yeah, world leaders, you'll get two on the charge, three.
Hateful assault.
Yeah. Well,
So
like I said, you
chain
can get
sword,
them
but
up there. Yeah.
yeah, then I mean, paired off with world leader stuff. I mean, you can buff. There's Wild Fury where you can boost their AP to neg 2 if it matters. So now
Mm,
stuff with a 2 up 4 up now has to take their invul save. Or I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff. They have a stratagem. They can do a 6-inch consolidate. I mean, there's so much.
play
World
with
leaders
them.
have so much. Yeah, world leaders have so much movement stuff, but they're still yet so slow.
Mm.
So I've actually like I took some of those Sigmar blood warriors, blood
Okay,
warriors.
the Blood
I
Warriors.
took
Yeah.
one of those kits. I took the Raptors chainsaws. I took the Chaos spikes, and I mashed them all up. And
Nice.
so I got 6, and I'm planning to just run 2 small squads of 3 for
Nice.
exactly that. Just taking that space. And if I don't go first, I mean they're up there and they're contesting it, and you have to respect. 15 neg 1, potentially neg 2 swords
Yeah.
that can become can get death to the false emperor against anything or against Imperium on 5. I mean,
Yeah.
if you launch your guard up and you have world eater bikers and they don't deal with it, they're not going to have that objective by the start of their next command phase.
Mm.
And I think that's important. I think one of the things that really lacks with world eaters and something that you should look for is some speed. Doesn't traditionally seem to be in a lot of lists, and I think bikers kind of fill that void for not a huge investment.
Mm,
And
true enough.
T5, 2 wounds. It's not like a bunch of last gens are going to wipe the unit or anything. Whereas Raptors on the flip side are T4, 1 wound. So
Yeah.
I don't know. There's pros and cons, of course. I'm trying to just look at the positives, right?
Exactly. No, no, and that's what it is. It's like I said, we're trying to see what their actual role in a world leaders list would be. How viable will they be? Because obviously, a lot of these things are not going to be as viable as other stuff because other stuff was just made more to be world leaders. But like you said, everything has a spot for something else. Even though you're not going to see everybody use it, but this is just kind of an episode to be like, hey guys, maybe think of this, and you might get people trying other stuff more.
For sure.
So jumping to the next one, we can kind of
Wait,
combine these guys a little
hold
bit
up,
together.
hold up, hold
Oh,
up
oh,
one
oh, oh!
second.
I skipped
Okay.
something. Okay.
There's a fast attack unit that is in the Forge World book that I feel like you would like to talk about.
Oh, I
That is
would. Oh,
exclusively corn.
just wait, just wait. I got to get this up. My good old blood slaughters of corn.
Yes, sir.
That's
Mighty.
one thing I've always ran to in every single list.
I know
So
we're not
thank you
touching
for
on
that.
Forge World much, but
No,
I,
but it's
I
just to
feel
say it is an
remiss.
option here, and
I
so
feel
yes,
like this is your perfect platform to sell the world
perfect time to
on the
plug it
greatness.
away.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm just gonna bring it up here in good old Battle Scribe. So just give me a
How
second,
many do you own?
folks.
You have 2?
I got 2 here, yeah.
Yeah, they're all painted up and everything.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
I bought them when I actually went to Nottingham. When me and my wife went on our honeymoon, the first thing I said when we went to England was, I want to go to Nottingham. And when I
nice.
went, the first 2 things I bought was 2 blood slaughters.
Did she know
So,
that was why you wanted to go to
oh, of
Nottingham, or
course.
did you
I
try
said
to sell it as something
Nottingham,
like?
Warhammer, of course she knew. So yeah, so essentially we're looking here, we're looking at base point wise for 140 points. That 140 points gets you a stat line of a 10-inch movement, which is amazing. Weapon skill, ballistic skill of 3, strength and toughness of 7, 9 wounds, 5 attacks, 8 leadership, and a 3-up save. They come
So
with the 5-up invuln because demonic.
they must have got that 3 up. Did they always have that, or did that
3-up
change in the
armor
new book?
save.
No, weapon skill.
Yeah, no,
Were they 4 up before?
Forge World always had a little bit better, so they always had
Yeah.
a 3-up.
Okay.
So the crazy thing with them is it's each time this model advances, do not make an advance roll. Always go 6 inches. If they're equipped with 2 of the blades, they get an extra attack. So you're looking at 6 attacks, but it's essentially melee plus 2. So you're looking at 9 strength, minus 3, 3 flat damage. That's going to be 18 potential damage. I've had one of them run up to Girlyman, and 1 round of combat, kill it. Just done. 140 points, completely decimated, reboot day, and
Yeah.
it was great.
So it's base 5. It sounds like they're saying if it has 2 slaughter blades,
Yeah,
you
you'll
make
get
one
a
additional
+1,
attack.
so you get 6. Because you can also have it with the Impaler Harpoon, which is
Yeah.
just it's a 18-inch assault 1, strength 8, minus 3, still 3 damage. And
Okay.
I do believe that they had changed this. So here, let me see here. So it is impaled at the start of the next shooting phase. While model's impaled, its move characteristic is halved, and each time a charge roll is made for the bearer, that model's unit that is target adds 2 to the charge roll. So essentially, if I hit you with the harpoon, I have to hit, and I get a +2 to charge, which is still amazing. So you're kind of
Yep.
giving up an addition 3 damage on the shot, and you're giving up a 3 from the actual inside attack, which essentially comes out to be the same thing because it's 1 strength less. Instead of 9, you're at 8, still minus 3, and still 3 flat damage. But if you're getting that extra 2 inches to charge, I mean, hey, that's huge right there.
Sure. They also got hateful assault, which is
They
very
also
nice.
have hateful assault, so you get
Um,
another one there. So you're looking at 7 if you have the double claws, or 6 with the impaler.
yeah, I'd like to sort of touch on the half movement aspect of them as well. So if you wound them, then as Danny said, you get a +2 to charge against that unit, but you also have their movement. And something like this, it's only one shot, but having movement, and then you think about you're seeing more woods and craters and stuff like that. So you take something like I just played space against Space Wolves, so
Hmm.
Thunderwolf Cavalry with a base 10-inch movement. Now it's down to 5. If
Yeah.
they have to go through a forest, now it's down to 3.
Hmm.
Like that's huge, and then that
No, it
unit's
is.
just stuck there. I mean, that's a swing of 7 inches of movement. So no matter what charge they were planning, they have to add 7 inches to that. You could totally just use this as an outsider skirmishing unit that just slows their army down. You don't even have to actually be like incredibly aggressive with it early. You could wait and
Yep.
just throw a wrench in their whole game plan. I mean,
Yeah. And I mean, 140
Outriders.
points is really not that bad when you start looking at like dreadnought base size models, like 9 wounds type style. And
Sure.
like I said, it's really quick. It gets around where you need it to go super, super quick. Like I said, you have a 16-inch move.
Yeah. 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 They're cool. And the model's awesome. Most
Oh,
importantly.
it's a glorious model. Like I said, I just love it. Like it was as soon as I bought it, it was one of those models. The second I put it together, I painted it right away, and I'm just like, it's so nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But no, continuing on into the actual Chaos book, like I said, we can kind of wrap these two together because they kind of play the same role, but Havocs and Obliterators. So yeah, it's a way for world leaders to get shooting. Obviously, it's not the best because it's not like you're running them Slanesh to get endless cacophony and stuff like that. But I mean, you run up 5 Havocs, you throw on was it the chain cannon,
Hmm.
and people are going to be focusing on them because you have 36 attacks coming, and it takes the ideal away from shooting at the berserkers or the rhinos coming up the board. Strength 4 T5. I mean, like they're still very viable units, especially
Yeah.
obliterators. Obliterators are a little bit more because of course the whole D3 strength, D3 AP, D3 damage. Don't get me wrong, I got 6 of them sitting on my table. I love them, but in a world leaders, I'd probably throw a contemptor or something in its place.
Okay, so where I stand, first of all, Havocs. I'm not in the Havoc camp at all right now. Being T5 with one wound is just brutal. Anything can kill them, even
Yeah,
in cover.
they're definitely going to get the 2 wound boost.
You shoot enough las guns at Havocs and the squad will die, which just as it feels bad and never
Oh,
trades well. Now, I mean, Slanish and stuff. I think you can make a better argument having las cannons in your pocket in case your opponent's running flyers or indirect tanks that you just
hmm
can't get at is nice. But again, I think you're better off taking a dreadnought as you were saying.
yeah.
I actually like Hellbrutes for that. Like, but a las cannon and a fist is kind of makes it a nice
Yeah,
little
well,
thing.
Hellbrutes have been seeing a little bit more play ever since they dropped in points, and it's like
Yeah,
they're a fun unit. Like I got
yeah,
6 of them sitting back here, and that's another thing I've been playing with is just Hellbrutes in general. And you're
yeah.
even starting to see people online being like, "Well, I threw in just the one Hellbrute, like you said, with a last cannon and a power surge, actually."
Mhm. Yeah.
And they said those have been running super great. Like they mulch things left and right.
Yeah, I like clumping them around a dark apostle just to give them the invul because
Mm,
the things that are going to shoot them they're going to want the invul. But anyway, so I don't really getting back on track. Havocs,
yeah,
I don't. I mean, even as Slanish and stuff, I'm not sold. I've tried them. It's nice sometimes. I mean, but they just you look at them and they die.
yeah,
T5 one wound is just not enough anymore.
not right now.
Now obliterators, I do think you know, I think they're a nice unit to have in your pocket. They're
Hmm.
chunky. They can advance and shoot. Um, and worst case scenario, they're strength seven, egg one damage. But they're such a controversial unit. Some people hate them, some people love them. I've talked to people who think running obliterators is basically just handicapping your own list. But
I think it's just at the huge point sink now. Back in the day when there were 65 points, people loved them. But of course, when they hit 110, I think that's where they're still at right now is 110. You're now
yeah,
looking at 330 points for 3 Blitz. And it does. Like my list of my Black Legion right now is I'm running 6 of them. And don't get me wrong, it's a huge point sink. But if you get the
yeah.
right rolls, and again, I always go back to Slanesh. They have to be Slanesh just to be able to utilize that stratagem. So,
I think where I think they give you a nice anti-Primaris option to their shooting
mm,
in an army that doesn't have a lot of shooting options. I
yeah,
mean, you may not love obliterators, but their infantry, which has all kinds of merits in ninth
yeah.
edition, it's just a good keyword to have. You could go as far into them as you want.
Hmm.
Where they're master possession to boost their invul save. They still get a 2-up, which is a 1-up in cover, and they
Yeah.
can benefit from cover being infantry.
Hmm.
I mean, I think, I don't want
Keep the master of
105.
possession behind them. Definitely gives them the buffs that they need there because you're able to re-roll. I do believe one of your re-rolls,
Actually,
and then they.
might be cheating here. Yeah, you can't take a master possession of world leader, so
Oh wait, nope, never mind. My
there's
bad.
that.
And here I
Yeah.
am, the one that's always telling you no sorcerers. Yep, my bad.
But I think they're a nice hybrid unit in
Mm,
an army that needs more shooting and doesn't necessarily need more punch.
yeah,
But that's not to take away from the fact that I still think you'd probably be better off going with Contemptor Dreadnoughts
yeah.
or Hellbrutes or something like
Hmm.
that.
Agreed.
But having three in your pocket and starting them in deep strike, um,
And that's the big thing. I always start him in deep strike. I don't think I've ever once used a unit of obliterators and he started on the table.
yeah. So they can do some interesting things. I think, yeah, I think you start them in deep strike, and they can kind of almost serve a similar role as mutilators or spawn and
Yeah.
reserves as we were talking about, where
Hmm.
where they can just harass, take, and hold.
Exactly.
Something that's, but if they're not gonna, they'll have MVP moments for sure, and then they'll have total dog shit like,
Yeah. You land them down, you whiff on your shot, you get 1 damage, strength 6,
yeah,
you don't get through something, then they just get shot to death. I mean, they got the
yeah.
5 up invuln, but again, they can throw enough last shots or this and that, and they're going to go
I
down.
I think the one thing I do like about them is 2 damage seems to be on the decline because of certain things. You're seeing more 3 damage, and they're
Yeah.
actually 4 wounds.
Mm,
So it definitely makes it a little harder to trade with them well. So
yeah.
I don't know. I like them.
Yep.
I've used them in a recent list, and they were pretty okay.
Nice.
That's about as good as the. They're pretty okay. I think
They're
that's
pretty okay.
yeah.
So going in next, and we can kind of do the same thing here. We can kind of clump them together, but we're looking at Vindicators and Predators. I'll be honest, myself, I've used predators in a lot of world leaders lists, like even dating back as far as seventh and eighth. Um, they're definitely reasonably costed, and again, it's just nice to have that big punch gun. Load them up with last cannons or whatever your flavor is, and they will do the work. But I've never ran more than one. I would have one, and I might have like a forged fiend, and there's my shooting.
Yeah, I mean to buy us some more time elsewhere. I'm just gonna say if you like these tanks,
Yeah.
it's not because you're running them as world leaders.
No,
So
you're playing because you have them and you like playing them, and essentially
yeah,
that's what it is. I have a predator. I like how it looks, and I wanted some shooting, so I threw it in.
yeah. I'm not a big tank guy really in any of my armies, so I don't know. I just yeah. Anyway, peace throne. But world leaders
Exactly.
aren't going to make these units better, so I don't really think
No,
we need to
but
get
the
too
next
caught up
one,
on them.
Land Raider.
Yeah,
Again, it has its things. Like I would throw some Red Butchers. Like if you're looking to only run a 5-man unit because you can only get 5 guys in there. If you're not looking to throw them in deep strike, I can see a Land Raider. Again, flavor it with whatever guns you want. Throw a 5-man unit, run it up the board. Chances of them blowing it up is slimmer than none. I mean, again, depending on whoever you're playing. But I've had good times with them, run them up either with 10 Berserkers or 5 Red Butchers, and they do their work. And like I said, you just kind of park them on an objective, stop your opponent from advancing, just leave them there sideways, run your guys up, take out whatever's there, and
yeah. I mean, it's the classic Land Raider.
exactly.
Poor GW. They keep trying to sell them and get people to buy them and stuff. They actually had a stratagem in the Death Guard Codex. I can't remember exactly. Oh, it's a stratagem that lets a unit with a certain, it's like something machine spirit or
Hmm.
whatever, always act as top profile. And when you look through the whole codex, you realize that the only thing that has that is the Land Raider. So they don't even in the stratagems they don't even want to use like Land Raider anymore. They're trying to like, oh, it's a good
Yeah.
stratagem, and it's just a Land Raider. I mean,
Yeah.
the Achilles before they redid Forge World was getting a
Mm.
lot of play, but it had a really cool thing. It had an indirect mortal wound mortar.
Yeah.
It was like 350 or 60 points. It was
But that,
T8
yeah,
with
that's the
19
thing. It's
wounds
like you're
and a
you're
4
definitely
up
paying for
invul.
these.
Yeah, it was T8 19 wounds in invul and a 4 up invul, and it was a mortar that shot mortal wounds and it like hit on twos. It was
Yeah.
nuts. But then they realized, and it was transport too, so you could just put berserkers in it,
Yep.
and if something came at a deep strike, you just get the berserkers out because berserkers are one of those things where they'll put a dent in
Oh, big time.
any unit if they can get in. I mean, I've charged recently a plague burst crawler with 10 berserkers, and they got it down to like 3 wounds, man,
Mm.
just because they just
Just the
if I
sheer amount of one
yeah
damage attacks that they have, and that's what's key. I find this edition. I've been noticing
yeah
everybody's like, yeah, 2 and 3. It's like, no, if you throw out 51 damage attacks over like say 10 4 damage attacks, I'll take the 50 attacks because chances
yeah
are more of them will slip through.
Yeah, there's actually something interesting. So at the very beginning, and well, we're talking about berserkers now, but the whole fight twice with world
Yeah.
eaters, and so if you charge, we all know the limitations of a charge. If you don't declare the target, you can't attack it. But if someone heroically intervenes into you, you can swing at them,
Yeah.
which was a nerf to heroic interventions.
Big
Um,
time.
but what's actually interesting, getting into world eaters, is with a fight twice, or in Red Butcher's case, they can now fight 3 times.
Mm.
If they're already in combat, in your combat phase, if you can wipe that unit, you can pop a stratagem to let them consolidate 6 inches,
Yeah.
and then they get to activate again to let them do a 3 inch pile in. And because they didn't charge that turn, if they can reach a target, they can swing on
They're
that
swinging
target.
first. Yep.
So then you can 9 inch them into another target, and if it's Red Butchers, for example, they kill a lot of
Oh
shit.
yeah. Especially dual
And
lightning claws, this and that. Oh yeah.
yeah, and then you spend the 3 CP fight again. That unit just moved 18 inches,
Just by
obliterated two
swinging it. Yep.
squads on its way, and got to the third one. So and Corn Berserkers have the same potential with the
Yep.
fight twice, right? So, they're it's hard for me to get enthusiastic about Land Raiders and stuff when like
Your guys are just
these
moving all the way up the board and killing stuff along the way too.
yeah
Just leaving the
yeah
trail of blood and
yeah
dead
like
armor.
I don't know. I mean, Land Raiders are still like I don't even know 275 points now or something like
Yeah.
that. I mean, a squad of 10 Red Butchers with lightning claws is
Yep.
280. Like,
And they'll
I
do
don't know.
just as much, if not more work.
Anyway,
Yeah, so
so
moving on to the next ones. Again, we can kind of put these back in the same category, but like Forge Fiends, Defilers, I'm going to say those two by themselves because Mauler Fiends and Venom Crawlers, I can see Mauler Fiends more, but again, the Forge Fiend and Defilers, again, if you have them, you throw them in, there's your shooting.
yeah, of all four of them, the most interesting to me as a world leader unit would be a Defiler, because again, I'm just I keep echoing myself, but they give you shooting in a less shooty army, and
Hmm.
Defilers have some good stuff, man.
Oh
I
man,
mean,
they're close combat between the claws and even the Defiler Scourge +4. So you're looking at strength 12 -2, 3 damage, and makes 3 additional attacks. So you're
yeah,
looking at 7 attacks.
and there's something important to not discount too is they get to shoot the stuff in their next shooting phase into engagement range with the new
True,
rules for
-1,
vehicles.
but you're still able to shoot, and
So
they'll get the treatment of the weapon skill and ballistic skill 3 up once the new book
so
comes
in
out too. So
combat, they're hitting on fours
yep,
with shooting. So they're shooting just as well as they were before the ballistic skill weapon skill changes,
yeah.
right?
But it's
So
even one of those things like if your goal is to get him up quick enough, and like you have the battle cannon, but then you throw on like the twin heavy flamers and this and that, and you're just fucking demolishing shit left and right.
yeah, I think yeah. I mean, they could take twin las cannons.
Hmm.
The Defiler Scourge is always great for that sort of chaff clearing.
I
Um,
always have it like between that and the flamer. I always find myself going more towards the scourge because they come with the was it the Reaper auto cannon? You got the battle cannon already. Then you throw on the scourge and you
so
got the claws, and it's
in the Death Guard book, they changed it. It's now this is the one thing. The Defiler cannon, it's not a battle cannon anymore. It's heavy
okay.
D6. It's flat 3 damage now instead of D3 damage,
So
but it's
in other
also
words, we'll see
blast.
that too here.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to shoot this because it's blast in close combat. But I mean, you
Mm,
still get to shoot those las cannons if you want, or
yeah,
whatever. And then the Scourge is +4 -2 2 damage, as opposed to 3 damage. So it took bit of a hit.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, overall, of all these units we're talking about, for sure, I would choose the Defiler. And one of the real nice changes to them that happened in the Death Guard book is the number of attacks don't degrade.
Mm.
So their movement degrades and their weapon skill and ballistic skill degrade.
Oh,
But
okay,
no
but the
matter
attack
what,
stays at
they
four,
get
is it?
five now.
Ooh, okay, so they got a bonus there too because base here it's only 4 in the old book.
Yes, and so the scores, the way it works now, is each time this bear fights, it makes 3 additional attacks with this weapon,
So you're looking
which is
at
the
8
same.
attacks. Okay.
You're looking at
Yeah, it's
eight
the same
attacks,
thing
but
here. Yeah.
you would still do your 5 swings with the claws, and the claws are -3 d6 damage. I believe they stay the same ×2.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
See,
I
again,
mean,
that depends on whatever you're fighting. Because, like I said, I would only use the Defier Claws if I'm going against heavy tank stuff. But if I'm going into a unit, no, it's like the Defiler Scourge the whole entire way. You get those 8 attacks at +4 because you're still going to be wounding everything on twos regardless.
it's tough to say, um, because well, I don't think you're not ditching the claws. You can replace its heavy flamer with either a havoc launcher or a scourge. So you always have the defiler claws, right?
Oh, that's what
You
I mean.
don't
Like you
actually.
always have both, so the options are there. But I'm just saying, like
Yeah,
in a scenario, if I'm going against like a heavy tank,
yeah.
yeah, you're using the Defier Claw every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the most part, because strength 12, most of the time you're looking at
That's
toughness.
16.
Yeah. So here the Filer Claw is definitely on bigger stuff, but the Scourge more if you're going into a bunch of like Primaris or Terminators or infantry stuff, and you just mow them down with that.
Well, I think that's the big thing that changed is now the Terminators are base 3 wounds and the
Yeah.
Scourge is only base 2 damage. So before it
Oh,
was
okay,
three
that's what you were saying
damage.
a while ago. In the Death Guard, it's only 2 damage. Okay,
Yes,
no,
yeah,
it's because
yeah.
yeah, because it was
So
3 here in the old book. Okay,
the appeal is a little less, and I
yeah,
think now you might be able to make that argument because you can shoot in combat for
yeah,
running like keeping the twin heavy flamer, you know,
mm,
and maybe you just don't even use the scourge anymore. I'm not sure.
mm.
But again, of all these units, I've never played with Forge Fiends. I've used to run Mauler Fiends all the time, um, and I think they're cool. And them going up if they do to weapon skill, ballistic skill 3,
Oh, which they
uh,
will. Yeah,
I could see myself using them, but I don't know what the future's going to hold. But the only thing that's always been a deterrent for me with a lot of these demon engines is just their bases are so massive, and there's
yeah.
just so many ways to just abuse that. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like you can just position your guard in a single file line so that it can't even You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's the move blocking is always, I don't know, it's tough to get around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think of all these, for me, my favorite choice right now would be a Defiler,
Yeah.
just because it's a nice mixed bag. It has
No,
the
it is.
shoot.
It kind of makes the Force Fiend Mauler Fiend kind of one with, again, a little bit of a heavier punch because I'm even looking at the Mauler Fiend. Like they have Lasher Tendrils, which is kind of essentially like the Scourge, but you're only looking at strength 6, -2, 2 damage, and the Mauler Fiend Fist instead of the Claws ×2. So you're still only at 12 -3, 3 damage. So,
Yeah, I mean the difference is points, right? The new
yeah,
Defiler with the twin las cannons, if you're going that route, would be 190 points. I think a
yeah,
Mauler Fiend's like 130 or something
yeah.
right now. So, I mean, you're basically giving up all that shooting for 60 points. But I guess that's part of what if you want to protect your investment,
Mm,
even if defilers get boxed out, they still have a pretty great shooting phase too.
exactly.
Whereas
No,
like a
true
Mauler
that.
Fiend, for example, if it gets boxed out, it's just out. You know, so
Yeah,
I think if you're interested in demon engines now, I mean the downside is the defilers are probably of these the least cool looking ones, depending on
yeah.
opinions. I think Mauler Fiends look awesome. I think Blood Slaughterers look awesome, but defilers, I mean, you got to be into the crab
Yeah,
thing.
they just look a little too chunk.
Yeah, bunch of Zoidbergs. So,
And talking about Zoidbergs, we got the Venom Crawler. But
yeah,
again, I've tried them a few times. Nothing special. It's one of those things unless you're running them with Master of Possessions, because to give them the extra
yeah,
to summoning and stuff like that. But on their own, you're looking at Assault D3 +2 -1 D3 damage. Their claws be Strength 8 -3 3 damage, which hey, it's not bad. But you're only looking at 4 attacks. And then, but they also have their tendrils, which is you get 2 more attacks at strength 6 -2, 2 damage. So I mean, they're not bad. They're not overly priced. I remember them being a little bit cheaper or around the Mauler Fiend price. But
yeah.
I
115 on one side, and a Mauler Fiend I believe is 130.
yeah.
Mauler Fiends are 140. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Defilers in the Death Guard book are 180, and Venom Crawlers are also 130. Okay,
Okay.
so I don't know. They're kind of like baby defilers. I mean, if you're gonna go in,
Essentially.
just go all the way in. The problem too is just in general with the Chaos book. Once you get past Hellbrute Biker Infantry,
Yeah.
it the Legion you choose doesn't really have an effect on it, and it's just
Yeah.
whether or not we feel it caters to a Khorne list well, right? So
Exactly.
I think the recurring element here is you should try to decide on some shooting in case you run into aircrafts or things like that, and how you
Yeah,
plan
because
on
you do
dealing
need
with
that
that.
one option at least. Yes.
Yes, and then what you think is the best platform for that. So,
Yeah.
like, I think you and I are kind of on the same page with Hellbrutes,
Mm.
and you can kind of lump all that stuff into Filers, Obliterators, Hellbrutes. Like, they're all kind of like this anti-tank sort of shooting thing
Yes.
with the melee. And I think just for the points and everything right now, I mean, if you want to go with any of this, you should just go with the Hellbrute.
Hmm.
It's just, it's like just slightly over 100 points. You could take a multi-melta and a hammer on it, and it just
Exactly.
smashes.
Just do
It's
just as
only
much work.
Yeah, the only thing these things all get beyond it really is the invul save, and that's an easy fix. You just grab a Dark Apostle.
True.
So
And throw it on them.
you know, and then yeah, Hellbrutes get Legion benefits too. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of they're all sort of competing for the same spot, and I think Hellbrutes are the winner here. The only downside is elites. If you need the elite slot choices,
Well, that's true. Red Butchers, this and that takes up elite spots.
yeah. So then I think for me, my second choice would probably be a Defiler
Mm,
if I were to
for your
rank it.
heavy support, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, then the next thing I think is one of the staples of most chaos lists nowadays.
Just Chaos Rhinos.
Good old Rhino, man. It's like 78 points right now.
Yeah, and like I
Um,
said, it just makes it good to get your guys up a little bit faster. You just move blocks so many people. You just turn them sideways. You stop people from getting to objectives. Just yeah, it's just all around for its point cost. It's good. If you want to spice it up, you throw on a combi weapon. I've seen people run them all with combi meltas and this and that. I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit of extra points, but who's expecting a melta shot coming from a rhino?
it's one of those. I guess if you have the points, why not, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, I mean, yeah, it's so the one thing that every chaos player is going to is still upset about is the wound issue.
Mm,
Um, basically everything in the Space Marines book got +1 wound, and Chaos did not.
Yeah.
So rhinos are, I think, very essential for protecting that stuff
Mm-hmm.
because
Big time.
one one wound of three up armor saves is not much
No,
anymore.
it gets you nothing right now.
Well, there's Devastator Doctrine, like Doctrines period, and then
Mm.
like all these new units and models, like zero AP is not even like making it into books anymore. You know what I
No,
mean? Like it's
everything
like
has something now.
everything, right? So realistically, you're not actually getting a 3-up save unless you're in cover.
Exactly.
And I mean, you want those Zerkers in. I mean, they're 18 points a model or so, and you need to get them in. No one really wants to shoot a Rhino.
Yeah.
Like when it's your shooting phase, there's no glory in killing a Rhino. And right now, the way it's written is going back to that Dark Apostle idea. You can give the Rhino a 5 pinball,
Yeah, if you
and then
really
it's
want to
just
just be that
that.
guy and
Well, it's just so much more annoying. If you,
yeah.
it's assurance if you go second that that thing could actually survive. And
Mm-hmm.
then even if it gets bracketed down to a 3-inch move, you just move it. You know, you're still using transports to get that extra movement anyways, right? When you disembark, you get to move 3 inches.
Then plus
Like
your actual movement,
so
so
you're within 3 inches, but you're still 3 inches ahead. So even if
yep.
that thing's completely gutted, you just saved your Zerkers for a turn,
Yep.
and now they basically get a free +3 inches to move, and they can start doing things. The only deterrent is, when we start talking about World Eaters, they have a strat that lets you pre-game move 9 inches.
Yeah, but that's only
For
on infantry models only, I do
Yes,
believe. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So if you're in the Rhino, you don't get that. So
No.
there's discussion there to be had, but I don't know. I mean, I most chaos lists for me right now start with 2 Rhinos is a
No,
must if I'm
definitely.
doing World Eaters. So buy some, you won't regret it.
Exactly. Like I said, it's going to be that one annoying unit. Like you said, nobody's going to want to shoot into it. And while it just coasts up a little bit by little bit, it blocks you from an objective. And then even if it gets blown up, who cares? Like 70 points down the drain. But you also had to spend how much shooting to actually take it out and get it off the board. And that was less shots at your berserkers or less shots at your terminators, your butchers. And yeah, I think it's a fair trade off any day.
Yeah,
So moving on to the next one, and this is one I always have fun with. It doesn't matter what one you take it in, but just the good old just Hell Turkey. The Hell
yep,
Drake has always been good because it's one of the only flyers that doesn't suffer from minimum movement. You can attack flyers, you can close combat flyers, but you can also close combat guys on the ground. It's the most versatile flyer from my thought knowledge, really. Like obviously there's other flyers that yeah, they're much better. But just the fact that you're never restricted to a minimum maximum move and you just go wherever you want and it just still wreaks havoc as much as another flyer, really.
yeah.
The output of like firepower obviously is not as big. Like the auto cannon's only 4 shots and the bell flamer's D6, but it's still a good amount of firepower coming out.
Yeah. So it's uh, we're saying flyer, but it's not technically a
Yeah.
flyer. Like
Like it doesn't get the
it's
-1 to hit or anything like that, but it can still engage stuff in the air, this and that.
exactly. It's an aircraft with melee presence,
Yeah.
and it's an aircraft without any of the downsides of being an aircraft.
Hmm.
And sort of returning back to how I was talking about bikers early on, Helldrakes do that just way better.
Oh man,
Um,
30-inch movement right off the bat. Like you're going to one end to the other end in one turn, no matter what. No advancing, no nothing. And
yeah, and I've personally had games where I've flown a Helldrake up and burned like 3 or 4 Primaris Marines right
yeah,
off the get go, right? Because it's flat 2 damage, so it's enough
exactly.
to matter.
Yep.
And you can just put it in a spot, where your opponent doesn't want to go,
Yep.
and force them to go there because
And
it
it's
can
another
go
one of
their
those
turn 1.
models like you don't want to focus your fire on it, but now it's just taking your fire away from another unit because it's literally sitting behind you right now. And
Yeah, I think Helldrakes are great.
oh man,
I'm
I got
very
3 of them and I've done it once. I ran 3 of them in a list. And
Yeah,
again, they're not super expensive, but it's still just fun. It's
yeah.
board presence.
I think I don't know. I'm surprised you don't see them in competitive lists more. I'm not sure. I haven't really talked too much to people about it. I get that they can sort of easily be dealt with, but like it's kind of like one of those things where if you go first, the potential is just unreal.
Oh
And
no, it is.
if you
But
go second, then it might just disappear on you.
yeah, but I find at this day and age, unless it's putting out 15 shots, nobody wants to play it. And I hate that mindset. I hate it. But like I
Yeah.
said, like the Helldrake has decent shooting. It's nothing crazy. But how
Mhm.
many aircrafts can you say can dish out what 4 attacks, -1 D3 damage, and if this one attacks a flying, it adds 1 to the actual hit rolls.
Yeah.
So then you're hitting on 2s on aircrafts. And like I said, potential again, the D3, I can see that probably getting changed to a flat 2. So
Could
still,
be.
you,
Yeah.
you you shoot at it, you charge it, you could do probably 6 wounds, and you
Yeah.
could take something down. So
I think it has a lot of tactical flexibility
mm,
that this book currently lacks.
yeah,
And, there's quite a few secondaries that favor what Helldrakes do. And, again, I mean, the World Eaters lists are kind of anvils, are Zerkers and butchers and stuff like that. So these are things you can do to
yeah,
take the heat off them, because we all know once Berserkers start touching things, you know if they can survive walking across the field, they can do a lot of work, and they're very tough
yeah.
to move. So yeah, I mean, I think they're great. I have nothing. I'm surprised you don't see them a lot more in competitive play. I think for me, mostly it's probably just the fact that there's not really much that makes them better than exactly what their data sheet offers. But
Exactly. There's no
I
upgrades to him. It's like you have a choice of one of 2 guns, and that's it.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I don't know. I like them. I always rate them in lists. I think they're
Mm.
great. They've never let me down. They've either, just go into it expecting that it's just gonna, if your expectation is to just move it into a spot that your opponent doesn't want to go and force them to commit resources to that spot and away from your main force, it's done its job.
Yeah,
And if it does more than that, then
great.
you're happy. So,
Exactly. All right, moving
uh,
on to the next one, and I'll
medical.
let you take this one away because I know you enjoy this one. But the good old
Uh,
Lord of Skulls.
I my sweet, sweet Lord of Skulls. Uh, I constantly have to wrestle with my internal monologue about not just running 3 of these at every single tournament. Um, that's just like, I don't know, man. This thing's
Just Karn and 3 Lords of Skulls. Go.
go. Yeah, I love it, man. I don't know.
Yeah, because they took
It
a
may,
huge drop in points, if I remember correctly, too. Because they used to
yeah,
be like over 600 some points, but now they're definitely more
four
reasonable now.
430 or somewhere. I think they're like the go-to loadout has them hit around 430 points.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, they're just, if it, some people like Morty. I like Lord of Skulls. Okay,
Three
you
Lord of
just
Skulls, a handful of some cultists just for objective grabbing,
mhm.
throw Karn and an Exalted Champion, and that's all you need.
I sometimes I sit there thinking a hilarious list would be 3 Lord of Skulls and Mortarion.
Oh, Jesus
Just
Christ.
it's like, what do I do here? But then you don't have anything
You
else. So
hide. You just hide.
yeah, you just hide. I think it's kind of it's a little less impressive now with all these new codexes coming out. I mean, there's that's just what's happened to this codex period.
Mm.
The entire Chaos Codex has gone through it. Faith and Fury was great. There's a lot of ways you could run Lord of Skulls, and it's just something you're gonna have games where your opponent just can't deal with it,
Mm.
and it's just gonna pop off, and it's just gonna wreck face. And then you're going to have other games where your opponent can definitely deal with it, and you've just given it a perfect 500 point,
No, it's
430 point
true.
target to shoot. So, I mean, this is the gamble. And, you know, I think maybe one is a bit of a risk, but I'm not convinced that 3 Khorne Lord of Skulls is a bad list.
No.
They're so customizable. They can do so much in melee. They have solid shooting as well. They're just monsters, dude.
No,
I
they're
mean,
definitely one like super well rounded in all aspects of it, and
and the point drop was great for them.
mm,
Um,
it was
you know,
huge.
I, I I think their best look right now, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because it's a Khorne podcast and it's Khorne Lord of Skulls, but I
Yeah.
do think Iron Warriors is probably where you want to run them, just
Mm.
for all the extra. I think to me, the way I sort of imagine them playing is you the shooting is sort of the primary thing. You kind of want to keep them back and sort of screen them out. But if something gets in, they can definitely mess it up
Oh, big
because
time.
the frustration would come with, if things start touching it, then it's forced to move places. It's got such a big base and it doesn't quite have the movement to compensate for that. So
Yeah.
if you start two rank tagging it in combat and it needs to fall back, it can do all that, right? It's a
Yeah.
Titanic unit, but you start running into your opponents basically forcing you where to go, and
Exactly.
this can lead to things where it's plagued by the new rules of terrain where obscuring is a thing, and your opponent can definitely make it. So, like you said, you just hide against it, and that alone might be enough to just you know
Yeah.
cost you the game. So um, yeah, I mean, I think it's a beautiful model.
Oh, big
Um,
time.
it is all things corn,
Yeah.
and if you want to show people that you are the most corn of them all, then you
You
should
run
run
three of
three.
them.
Yes. So
Or if you're cheap like me, you run two and you throw in the Kaitan because at least I have him thinking right now.
I've never. I played against the Kaitan once. I've never played.
It's not bad, but again, he can get easily shot down. Like I played tournaments and actually won, and Justin keeps throwing it in my face. I didn't even get a turn with him. Turn one, he shot some last cannons at me and a couple of indirect fire, and boom, he was dead.
Yeah.
It was done. 5-up invuln save didn't really go very far, and yeah.
Yeah. The last time I played against one was an eighth when I was still playing Space Wolves a lot, and Wolfen just
Mm.
obliterated it.
Yeah.
Like it killed like two Wolfen, and those Wolfen before they died into their pulp. Rest in peace, Wolfen. By the way, they are so much. I don't know. They're not what they were. Them and Thunderwolf Cavalry kind of switch
Yeah.
places this edition. But anyway, this isn't a Space Wolves.
But no, that pretty much sums up the actual basic codex itself.
The
Like we're not gonna go
greatest
through.
unit of them all, the Noctilith Crown.
So that's the end for the basic book. Actually,
Fair
I'm kind of
enough.
thinking like, should we go through some of the? I think there's like one warlord trait, one some special relics. Was there anything really massive that would stand out worth talking?
Well, I mean, first of all, the greatest thing about Khorne is when you're playing these melee-based armies is it opens up the icon of Wrath for a lot of
Oh,
these
big time.
units, which lets you reroll charge rolls for
Hmm.
units with an icon of Wrath. So right then and there, in basic math, like on a 9-inch deep strike, I think it goes from like 20% to like 48%,
Mm,
which is very significant. So right then and there, if you're slapping the corn word on things, you're definitely going to want to be doing more of a melee focused army. I
yeah.
just, talking about the shooting and stuff, I think you just want to cover that weak spot. We should just go over the I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
we
well,
should
I have
talk
it
about
open
the
here, like
legion
for
traits and
example,
stuff.
like the chart here for like Legion traits. So in case anybody's not familiar with the Legion traits, is depending on what chapter you choose, you'll get a special bonus. The World Eaters is the Butcher's Nails. So essentially, it's when a unit with this trait makes a successful charge, you can make one additional attack with one of it, with each of the models in the subsequent fight phase. So essentially, that's where you're starting to get the extra attacks from the Berserkers, the Red Butchers, and stuff like that. But that's a basic thing there. There's a couple of
F
good stratagems, if I do believe.
Two main ones, well, three depending. Okay, so Veterans of the Long War. That's
Yeah,
basically the thing
Vets
called
is definitely.
Chaos right now. It's a one CP plus one to wound, which is insane value for one CP, and you're
Hmm.
always going to want to use that on something. Then if you're planning to go Demon Engine heavy, then Demon Forge is a great stratagem to
Yeah,
have in
big
your
time.
pocket too. Lets you reroll all failed hit and wound rolls for that model. So if you are
Which is
doing
huge.
something
I'm
like
always popping that off left and right.
so this is in the shooting and fight phase. So if you want to just talk about Lord of Skulls for a minute, as soon as it's that thing's turn to do something, it
Oh
starts
man,
with
you
Demon
demon
Forge.
forge the crap out of it. Oh
Yeah.
no.
And then the last thing, which we sort of touched on earlier, was the Fury of Corn, which lets a unit fight again.
For a
And
third time.
so a lot
Well,
of
if
stuff
yeah, if you're
fights
kind of like
twice.
berserkers and stuff like that, yeah.
So just keep it's 3 CP, but I think that's worth keeping in your mind when we jump to World Eaters because this is when all that movement shenanigans start to happen.
Well, like you were saying, it's like you go, you kill something, you move up your six, you kill something, you move up again, and if you can
Yeah.
tag that third, there's a chance 3 CP, and you just went up another 3+ inches, and plus your consolidates, and again,
Yeah.
it's 3 CP, yeah, but it's hell worth it if it gets you to where you need to go.
Yeah, the fight phase when a unit activates in the fight phase, if it was within engagement range of a unit at the beginning of the turn, will always get its pile in and it will always
Hmm.
get its consolidate.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't activate that unit, if another unit kills the unit it was touched with, you can still pile in and consolidate with that unit.
Yeah.
And so this is where it becomes interesting because if you have, let's say for example, I have mutilators and red butchers all touching, a squad of 10 or 5 guardsmen or whatever.
Yeah.
If those mutilators kill that guardsman, when I go to activate those butchers, I can pop the 6-inch consolidate stratagem right there.
Yeah.
Their first activation, they get to pile in and consolidate. That's 9 inches. If they don't get to something, they still get to fight twice, and they still have a 6-inch consolidate. So there's another 9 inches they get to move. And then if you want to spend the 3 CP to let them fight again, then they
Yeah.
get to take that pile in and consolidate again.
Yeah.
And this is where the charge phase in ninth got nerfed, but continuous combat is still great.
Yeah.
Because in I remember in eighth with Red Butchers, kind of like in that little bit of time after Faith and Fury, I was playing against one of the guys, Necrons, and they just walked around. I made them fight 3 times, and they literally just walked an arc around his army and shoot through like 1,000
Yeah.
points and stuff. And that was before, that was when you could declare everything as a
Yeah.
charge, and even if you at least reached one, you could just pile it and touch
Exactly. But now
everything.
you gotta be so
And
much more careful because if you don't tag those 2 or 3 that you call for, then it's just an auto fail.
Yeah, so I think now the play, playing into this world eaters is to try and get multiple units in touching stuff and engage so that when the
Yeah.
next fight phase comes around, that's when you can start using these world eaters things to start stealing all this movement and really getting them around because Terminators only move 5 inches,
Yeah.
right?
But no, another strat that's huge here, and again, it goes back to what I keep saying with no sorcerers, no nothing to do in the psychic phase. At least here, they give you something for 1 CP. The Sorin of Sorcery essentially is use a stratagem with an enemy psyker manifests as a psychic power within 24 inches of a World Eater's unit. It doesn't think it could be any unit at all. Roll a d6 on a 4 up, the effects of that psychic powers are negated. So at least it gives you that one shot per turn that if something goes off, even if it's on irresistible 12 or whatever it is, you can still roll on a 4. It's done. Like it doesn't matter what they roll on a 4 up, it will actually stop it.
50%
And I've
chance.
had big game changing moments where I've actually had
Yeah.
that go off. And like you said, it could be like um, Morty or just somebody at all. Like you said, you roll plus they're 3 or something. It's like, oh, 15, you can't stop it. You roll the dice. Oh, it's a 4, I stop it. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have in your back pocket.
Pretty much, there's a secondary called Abhor the Witch. If you don't know it, go read it. It's very impressive for Psyker-based armies, and it's kind of incentive for armies that don't really need a Psyker to not bring a Psyker, because then they could take the secondary. So with that in mind, if your opponent does bring a Psyker or Psykers, there's guaranteed a spell that they are banking on to make a big play with that
Yeah.
you are going to want to stop.
Yeah.
And to have 1 CP, a 50% chance to stop that, I mean, that can throw a wrench in some
Oh,
gears,
big time.
I could fire off all the examples, but
Yeah,
you
but
know,
even here in the artifacts, again, it goes straight to this is the World Leader special one, but just the brass collar.
brass collar.
Obviously, yeah, like I'll probably end up picking other relics over this, but if you just want that extra protection, again, it's essentially World Leader's model only. It's essentially is when the bearer of the brass collar can attempt to deny 1 psychic power in each psychic phase. If the model makes successful deny the witch test, the psyker that was attempting to manifest the power immediately suffers perils of the warp. So that's
Yeah,
another huge one right there. Like you can just be like, all right, well, you take some mortal wounds, and you
yeah.
stop it.
It becomes a meta dependent pick.
Yeah.
I know where we are. You're gonna definitely probably come across Thousand Suns
Mm.
and Gray Knights. So it's kind of funny to just be like, oh, I denied it, and you're
Yeah.
taking barrels.
Yep.
So sorry. Um, the other great Khorne relic is the Talisman of Burning Blood.
Big time. Yeah.
And that just basically allows the bearer, to advance and charge.
That's
And
that's huge. Yeah.
there's so much application, we don't even
Hmm.
have to sit here and
No, I
beat the
throw it
drum
on
about
my
it.
exalted champion or whoever, and
Yeah.
just let him go to work.
So I would like to, before we get into the Faith and Fury, just sort of talk about a Dark Apostle for a moment.
Hmm.
So they're known for being able to give. We've talked about it. Benediction of Darkness, -1 to hit. And the 5-up Benval is another very illustrative supplication is another
Yeah.
prayer that's commonly used, and that's a great um, that's a great thing to have in your World Eaters army. Getting involved in those Zerkers, Rhinos,
Hmm.
some of the stuff, the Hellbrutes, is fantastic. But the other hilarious thing is these guys can be friggin' beat sticks, dude. And I think we
Oh
talked
yeah.
about this on the last episode, where Wrathful Entreaty they get +2 to strength, and Omen of Potency they get 3 more attacks, and their
Minus
their
4 armor
penetration
pen.
goes -4. So I don't think
It's like
you could
Dark
do
Apostle
wrong.
pushes the demon prince aside. It's like, let me do my work.
Yeah, the gods beckon me. Yeah.
Um,
And then he can just you have access. I really like the idea of taking 2 Dark Apostles in a World Leaders list.
yeah.
And I think you should at least take one, but they can do work if you let
Hmm.
them. Don't mistake them as simply just a priest,
Yeah.
because those guys can smash if you let them
Yep.
smash. So,
Yeah. As long as you get the right combo off, they can definitely do a lot of work.
and I think that brings us to the actual Faith and Fury, the thing we've been
Well, I'll,
talking
I'll
about.
just go through. There's like one specific warlord trait for the world leaders. Nothing super crazy, but still kind of good to have in the end. It's just essentially add one to your warlord's attack and strength characteristic each time he slays an enemy character, model, or Titanic model. So like this is a cumulative.
Hmm.
So if you go have him just kill monsters left and right, like imagine some against a Tyranid list or something like that, and you start hacking away monsters left and right, this and that, you're gaining +1, +1, +1, depending on how many guys are actually running.
Does
That's
it
one that's kind
cap?
of not a lot of people really take. So
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of it's a bit niche, right? Like
yeah,
the number of characters in the list that seem to
has
drop
has dropped has dropped big
exponentially,
time. Yeah,
because you're just not bringing detachments. Detachments now cost CP, right? So
exactly. So nobody's taking triple patrol unless you're playing like
yeah,
myself. Drukari is the only thing I can see, but besides that, the whole
yeah,
battalion and patrols, you're not seeing them no more.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth a look. You can if you want a beat stick,
Yeah,
that's a good place to start for sure.
big
Um,
time. But
so
no, like here said, we'll jump into Faith and Fury. There's a couple pages here. So if you want to, do you have it in front of you?
yeah, I got it
Yeah,
here.
if you want to start off with the warlord traits.
Yeah. So they basically Faith and Fury breathed a lot of breathed new life into a lot of the legions that were sort of I don't know that they kind of felt stale the initial codex, right?
Well,
Like
essentially, it felt like you were playing the same thing over and over, except for one relic and one
one
trait, and that
strat,
and that
one
was it.
relic,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it's just like so, someone at GW had an amazing idea to give these legions more than just that. So a lot of legions ended up with a whole new page of warlord traits, stratagems, and relics. I think that
Hmm.
pretty much summarizes what happened.
Yeah.
So we'll get into the warlord traits. There's a few here. I'll just start reading them because
Yeah. Start from the top, and we'll go down.
so number one is Slaughterborn, and I'm not ranking these are just how they're listed. But when an enemy character, monster, or Titanic model is destroyed as a result of an attack made by this warlord, add one to the warlord's attacks and strength
So that's
characteristics.
essentially just right out of the core book,
Yeah,
essentially.
so that remains unchanged, but then they
Yep.
have 5 new ones. So the second one will be Arch Slaughter. At the start of the fight phase, you add D3 attacks to your warlord's attack characteristic if there are more enemy models within 3 inches of them than there are friendly models. And these extra attacks last until the end of that fight phase. So this one's kind of like, I don't know, you want to send like the baddest dude right into the middle of the fray, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
like I say, you throw on a demon prince.
yeah, it seems like Demon Prince is the go-to for that. But I just love it. I
Mm.
just love like its whole premise. It may not be the most competitive thing, but it's
No,
just
but
like,
it plays it. It's like nobody's around. Just start fucking swinging.
yeah. So Disciple of Khorne, when resolving an attack made with a melee weapon by this warlord against an enemy character unit or a unit that contains any models with a wounds characteristic of 5 or more, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll.
Which is
So
still a pretty good one. Like you're not seeing a whole lot of units that have 5 or plus, so you're going to be mostly using it against characters and the occasional other units, but it's mostly just going to be for characters.
yeah, but I mean, rerolling hit and wound rolls on like, oh, I don't know, a Thunder Hammer, for
Mm,
example, or another relic that we'll get into. That's my
yeah.
personal. Um, so this next one here is called Violent Urgency, and this to me, I would say is an auto take.
Mm,
it gives friendly world eaters units within 6 inches of this warlord +1 to their advance roll or charge roll
Yeah.
and or charge roll. So you've just turned your rerollable deep strike charge into an 8 versus a 9,
Yep.
which is massive. Um, that's there's nothing more to be said. You fail
No.
those charges, it's depressing. So do everything you can to make it. Now the only downside is chaos aren't haven't been graced with the concept of 4 warlord traits per army list or any of that
Yeah.
nonsense yet. So you're kind of stuck to just pick one. But my vote would probably be for violent urgency. I think if
Mm.
you were to take one. But
Especially like I said,
anyway,
especially for world leaders, because that's what we're lacking is to get there faster. And like you say, come out deep strike, you fail that 9-inch charge, you're like, well, they're dead. And
I mean, my whole honestly, I played world eater games where basically my my game changing point is whether or not the red butchers make the charge,
yeah,
because it all starts to go one way or another at that point.
yeah,
So you might as well hedge the bets in your favor as much as you can. The next warlord trait is True Berserker. When resolving an attack made with a melee weapon against this model, have any damage inflicted, rounding up. So this is one of those things again where if you could take more warlord traits, it would be hilarious.
yeah.
Because having damage is definitely significant.
Oh, it's huge.
Um, so anyway, then the final one is Battle Lust. So this warlord can perform a heroic intervention if there are any enemy units within 6 inches of them instead of 3 inches, and when doing so, can move up to 6 inches instead of 3 inches. This warlord always fights first in the fight phase, even if they did charge. If the enemy has units that have charge or that have a similar ability, then alternate choosing units to fight with, starting with the player whose turn is taking place.
Yeah,
So he always fights first, and there's all kinds of uh, different wordings on fight last or fighting out of
yeah.
sequence and stuff like that. So it really just depends on what is specifically being used on you. But a 6 inch heroic intervention is a scary thing to deal with. And I mean, I think for me, still the winner is violent urgency, but
Yeah.
it really depends on how you're choosing to build your world leaders list. Um, and I'm a big fan of Red Butchers and Deep Strike being the anvil, and so that's kind of where my thinking is with that.
Yeah. So moving on here, we have stratagem. So there's one page. So we have 8 here. One of them is again taking over the other books, the Scorn of Sorcery, which is the 4-up deny psychic power. So after that is for again 1 CP, Apocalyptic Frenzy. Use a stratagem during deployment when you set up a World Eater's infantry unit from your army at the start of the first battle round, but before first turn begins, you can move that unit up to 9 inches. So that's the one that we're kind of talking about a while ago, kind of like a free move up. But it does conclude with it cannot end its move within 9 inches of enemy models, which makes sense. And if both players have units that can move before the first turn begins, the player who's taken the first turn moves their units first. So what's nice about this is like you have to spend it right away when you're putting them down. But if something happens that you're not going first, you want to keep them back, you can choose not to move them. It just says you can move them up to 9 inches. So I've seen scenarios where people have spent the CP. It sucks that you're losing it, but they didn't move their guys because obviously if you're going second, you're not always want to move them up because you're just like, oh, you're closer into their firepower type thing or their range. So it's kind of a back and forth, but at least it allows you to do it before the first battle round begins. So you can choose to or not move them. So
Yeah, you know who's going first and who's not. And also, I mean, I've used it both ways.
yeah.
There's no limit to the
Hmm.
amount of times you can use it. So I've had games where I've run 3 squads of 10 possessed and used it on each one,
Yep.
and I went first, and they made turn one charges that they would
Yep.
have never made if I didn't go this route.
Exactly. It would give your
And
opponent that one turn to shoot them
yeah,
down before you even got to you. And
and the other thing too is even though you spent the 1 CP, the knowledge you have at the time when it comes to move them, even if you're going second, you can still make an educated decision to move them, to behind obscuring terrain
well,
so that
exactly. You
lead
can
and rush
take
can't
that.
shoot you and,
You can take
and,
it
and
to hide
stuff.
them. So you
Yeah,
can prep to be like, I'm going turn one,
yeah,
but still have them close enough to a building where if you don't, well, just move them sideways. You already spent the points, so just
yeah,
position yourself in a better defense.
for sure. So I think there's no downside to,
Oh
to
no,
this weapon. And
it's and for 1 CP, I love it.
well,
Uh,
and I mean, not to like you move them up to 9 inches,
Yeah.
even if they have a 6-inch move characteristic.
Hmm.
You're moving them 9 inches. That's basically an average Khorne Berserker after an advance. So you just
Exactly.
bought them a turn.
Yep.
It's an awesome strategy.
Next one we have here again for 1 CP, Skulls for the Skull Throne. Use the stratagem in the fight phase. When an enemy character model is destroyed as a result of an attack made with a melee weapon by a World Eater's character, you gain D3 command points. Hey, why not? Get some free command points. You kill a character for 1 CP
The worst case scenario is you spend 1 CP and get one
to get
CP.
1 CP. Exactly.
Just the most important thing is to remember this stratagem exists.
Yeah.
It's not the most flashy stratagem, but when it comes up, being able to grab, you could get 3,
Yeah,
and
exactly. Like I said, you're
that's
literally not losing anything by using it. So,
yeah. And don't forget,
then
3 command points is enough to fight again. So
exactly. So the next one here is the one that's very close and dear to Kier and his Red Butchers. It's called Red Butchers for 2 CP. Use the stratagem before the battle. Select one World Eater's Chaos Terminator unit from your army. You add one to the strength characteristic of the model, and that unit gains the following ability: Blood for the Blood God. The unit can fight twice in each fight phase instead of only once. You can only use the stratagem once per battle. So that's the thing. If you are looking to run a couple MSU Terminator units, you won't be able to benefit it. So that's why, like yourself, Kier, you always run a 10-man unit. You spend a 2 CP. They're now strength 5, and you can attack twice instead of once.
yeah. So double lightning claws just became free. So
Mm-hmm.
now your red butcher models are only 28 as opposed to, I'm
I
gonna
think it
say
was like up to,
38. I
yeah, it
think it
was
was
almost
5 for
pushing
claw.
40. Yeah.
So 280 and 10 more points for the Icon of Wrath. Um, both perks are just
Yep.
insane. The fight twice. I mean, I've talked about it multiple times about what you can do with it in conjunction with I think it's with the next stratagem actually, which Danny will
Yep.
talk about.
So for 1 CP, kill, maim, burn. Use a stratagem in the fight phase before you consolidate with a World Eater's unit from your army until the end of that phase. Each model in that unit can move up to 6 inches when they consolidate instead of 3. So like you were always mentioning earlier, that's how you get your board presence. You get to the next unit and you use your attack twice or even third time. And
Yeah, there's no harm. So, in my experience, the last time my Red Butchers were in combat, 10 of them killed 6 Death Shroud and a Lord of Virulence.
which is
Um,
ridiculous.
and that wasn't even with a third fight. That was just with a Demon Prince nearby for reroll ones.
Mm,
Getting base strength 5 is fantastic.
yeah.
With Lightning Claws, strength 5 means, you're wounding everything in the game in at least
Yeah, and you're
5.
still re-rolling all wounds, is that correct?
You're rerolling all wounds. And with vets, even, really the highest toughness you see is T8.
Yeah.
So with vets, you're wounding them on 4s, re-rolling wounds.
Yep.
That's a 50% chance. And then you take a unit that's getting, I think, like 6 attacks per model, because each Lightning Claw is +1,
Yeah.
World Eaters is +1, Hateful Assault's +1.
And the charge is
So
+1.
that's Hateful Assault,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, sorry,
So
yeah.
they're base 2 +2 claws, so that's 6 attacks right there. So yeah, squad
No,
of
but I
10's
mean
pretty
like the
good.
actual like world eaters. If you charge, you get +1 attack
Yeah,
too
yeah.
on that.
So
Yeah.
2 lightning claws would be +2, base 2, world eaters, and hateful assault. So that puts you at 6.
Yeah.
And then if you're popping vets, you're wounding basically everything in the game on
Yeah.
4. So that's 60 attacks. Like it's just
No.
does work.
And you're chewing through everything. And if you really want to just put the icing on the cake, the next one for 1 CP, Wild Fury. While the stratagem in the fight phase, when you select a world eaters unit from the army to fight with, until the end of the phase, improve armor penetration by 1. So you get the
So
extra AP off of that for again 1 CP.
this actually is like a perfect spot with lightning claws in this because a lot of the annoying stuff in the game is a 2 up 4 up, so the lightning
Yeah.
claws are actually enough to get on their own to force the invul.
Hmm.
But all the stuff that doesn't have that luxury, you start putting egg 3 and it's like, oh, by the way, your infector is saving on 6s or your tanks
Exactly.
saving on 6s sucks.
Yep.
And then when you talk about 60 attacks and if you, depending on where you want to go with it, I mean, I know you're anti-psyker, but I'm going to say prescience because
Yeah.
it'd be remiss not to mention that in the Chaos
Oh, big
podcast.
time.
But you start getting them hitting on 2s, wounding on, or rerolling 1s, wounding on 4s, rerolling all wounds. Next thing
Yeah.
you know, you've wounded that tank 40 times.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
boom.
making 36s.
No.
Boom. Right? And then that's when you start, anyway. I
Yeah.
just,
No, there's so many good combos with the CP, and I just love the fact that they're all just 1.
Yeah.
So I find you've been starting to see a lot more at 2 and even 3, but the worst you're paying here is the 2 CP to make them into the Red Butchers, and you just pop 2, 3 more points, and like you said, it's a guaranteed kill.
Hmm.
Next one again here for 1 CP, Stoke the Nails. Use the stratagem in the fight phase when the World Eater infantry or World Eater biker unit from your army that is not cultist is chosen to fight with. Until the end of that phase, the unit's Death to the False Emperor ability takes an effect when targeting an enemy unit, not just Imperium. In addition, when targeting Imperium, it takes effect on fives. So that's huge. That essentially gives you Death to the False Emperor on everybody. And if you're already fighting Imperium, it's on fives instead of sixes now.
Yeah. So the math here is very simple.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, every red butcher that I just talked about with dual claws is getting 6 attacks. So if it's happening on sixes, they're now basically getting 7 attacks.
Yep.
And if it happens on fives, they're now basically doing 8 attacks.
Yep.
I don't care what you're running. If you put 80 red butcher lightning claw attacks into something, unless
Oh.
it's like a custom stompa with 40 wounds at T8, like thing gonna die, you
Yeah.
know?
No, it's true.
And it's all these things. I mean, and I'm only talking about red butchers. I mean, this is great stuff with Zerkers too. I've used it on all of these. The Zerkers taken them up to Neg 2. That's actually one of my favorite applications for
Mm.
Wild Fury,
Yeah.
because Neg 2 starts to matter again. Talking about
Oh,
that
big time.
2 up, 4 up. Yeah, like the new storm shields.
Yeah.
Now there's a 50% chance that those attacks are going to get through, and all
Yep.
this stuff lasts till the end of the phase.
And that's the big thing because that means like if you kill something, you move on, you fight again, it's still there. You're not spending more CP on it.
Exactly, exactly. So, you can go as far into it as you want, but there's a lot of stuff that gets world eaters just above that break point. And
Yeah.
when you start pairing it off with fighting twice, I mean, they murder, man.
Yep. No.
So
So and the last one is kind of just your generic 2 CP auto pass, but it's just blood for the blood god. 2 CP, use the stratagem in the fight phase. After an enemy unit is destroyed as a result of attack made by a world leader's model in the army, until the start of the next turn, when a morale is taken for a friendly world leader's unit, do not roll the dice, automatically pass. So,
it's better. I like it. I mean, it obviously has the requirement of you wiping a unit, but
yeah.
basically being able to shut off failed morale for your whole
Yeah.
army for a turn. I mean, around
No,
turns
true.
turns
Yeah.
3 or 4, you're going to spend that 2 CP to save the unit. You might as well spend the 2 CP to save every unit from suffering any casualties. It's not one of the flashiest ones, but
Yeah.
around turn 3 to 4 it starts to matter because that's
Oh,
when
big
your
time.
your Zerkers are locked in. They started to whittle down this unit, and it's the sergeant finishes it off. Things are looking bleak on all fronts. You pop this, and you're just good on everything. You don't have to roll
Exactly.
any dice for that entire morale phase. So it's super nice. Even 3 Khorne Berserkers can do a ton of work, so it's
No, it's
worth
true.
trying to save them when you can, right? So
Exactly. No, if you want to take us off onto the last pages, the artifacts of the World Eaters.
okay, I'm gonna read my favorite last, just so everyone's
And I'm
aware.
sure anybody that plays World Leaders, we know which one it is, and it's an auto take in every list you'll ever play.
You'd be a crazy fool not to take it. But okay, so the first one is the Crimson Killer. So this is a relic plasma pistol, strength 9, neg 3, 3 damage, and unmodified wound roll of 4 plus inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any normal damage.
Yeah.
So it has the potential of doing 3 damage plus 1 mortal wound. And strike 9 is no joke. I mean,
Nope.
it's if you're putting it on a character that hits on twos, he's shooting this thing. He's probably getting it through,
Yeah.
and 1 mortal wound plus 3 damage. You're forcing the invul, and he might end up just plinking off a 50-point cavalry unit or something.
True.
And so then next is the Banner of Rage. You should definitely take this. Chaos
Mm,
luckily can still take extra relics,
yeah.
even though they're stuck on one warlord trait. And this is a great one. Once per battle, at the start of the fight phase, a model with this relic can unfurl the Banner of Rage. If they do, add 1 to the attack's characteristics of models in friendly world eaters units whilst their unit is within 6 inches of that model. So this can only go on a Dark Apostle, but
Yeah.
it's every unit within 6 inches. If you I don't know. I mean, last game I used it, I had 3 Hellbrutes around, and just giving them all that extra attack
Yep.
against
Oh, it's
some
huge.
Blight Lord Terminators. So it's probably one of the best relics for World Eaters. Not the best, but I think
Oh no, it's still
definitely
good.
you should take it. So yeah, and I think it's at the start of the fight phase, so he can still use his chant, and then later still use this banner. There's no Some of these relics have the stipulation where it's like instead of saying a prayer, or whatever, but this one you can still actually use it. So
Yeah.
you can still give them the invul and then later. So it's a nice thing to have in your pocket just to get a little more edge. Um, the next relic is a Berserker Glaive. I believe this is in the core rulebook or the core Chaos Codex, but it's a power axe or axe of dismemberment, which is what the Master of Executioner uses.
Yeah.
This relic replaces it, and it becomes +1, -2 damage, and the bearer gains a 5-up Feel No Pain. I talked about this before when we talked about Master of Executions, how I feel they might be better off as an elite slot.
Yeah.
And if that becomes a thing, he could become a very annoying dude to have hanging around if he has a 5-up Feel No Pain as well. So
Exactly.
but right now it's just hard to imagine where this would go. Power axes aren't exactly popular right now, especially when this other relic is sitting here. So the next relic is Helm of Furor. Infantry model only, add 2 to the strength characteristic of a model with this relic, and at the start of your charge phase, if a model with this relic is within 8 inches of any enemy units, it must declare a charge. So it's super corny
Yeah.
and not very good.
No.
You don't really want to have to do that.
Yeah, you don't want their positioning to determine where you go.
Yeah, and especially like when you consider some of the other relics you can take, it's just like
Exactly.
not so. So the next relic is Blood Hunger. When an enemy model was destroyed in the fight phase as a result of an attack made by a model with this relic, roll 1d6 and a 4+. The model with this relic regains up to 1 lost wound. So the wording's kind of weird there, where it says up to 1 lost wound, because I don't really know what becomes. There's not really much between 0 and 1, but
yeah, I'm not sure. Like I said, I didn't check to see if there's actually an FAQ on it or whatnot. But unless it's just up to 1 wound per destroyed model, but unless it's just telling you that you can only heal once, like you can kill 10 guys, you're not going to heal 10 wounds, you're only going to heal the 1. But
yeah,
I don't know. Again, it all comes to wording.
you get to roll a bunch of dice, and any 4 gets you. I don't know, meh. I mean, the best case scenario, I guess, is you probably put this on like a Lightning Claw Jump Lord or a Demon Prince or something. But I don't know. Again, it's not beating the
There's much
competition.
better other options.
So, like the final one here, Gore Father. I feel like I need to read the description of this.
Just do it.
The immense chain axe is said to have once been wielded by Angron himself, though it was ultimately cast aside. This relic is of such immense importance to the Legion that wars have been fought between rival warbands seeking to claim it for themselves. One strong enough to wield Gorefather can scythe his enemies into scattering explosions of blood and ruined flesh. So, and I think it lives up to the hype. It's
The
a
problem
relic
is
chain
whenever
axe.
like I've custom done so many models, but just I can never find the axe that's just big enough to really represent what it means. I'm just like, nope, still not big enough.
You gotta find a bloodthirster axe and then put it on like a
Yeah, just
normal
pop it
chaos
on.
lord. It's this big giant. Anyway,
Uh,
so it's a relic chain axe, and chain axes are only 1 point, which is another great sell
oh
on
yeah.
this. So it gives you +2 strength, -2 AP, and 3 damage. When resolving an attack made with this weapon, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So like normal lord's hitting on 3s now.
Yeah.
And on an unmodified wound roll of 6, the target suffers 3 mortal wounds and the attack sequence ends.
It would have been so much
So,
better if it was on top of basic damage. I
oh,
hate how they're doing the whole stop thing, but you know what? Whatever. 3 mortal wounds, like on a basic lord, you throw that on him. He's getting probably 5, 6 attacks, depending on some of the warlord traits, this and that. If he's going up to like 8 attacks, like could you imagine just 8 times 3 going
I
through like?
don't need to imagine it. I run it regularly.
I'm
I
trying to
don't
leave it to
need
the
to.
imaginations of the listeners. Come on.
I mean, it's just it, mortal wounds are insane this edition.
No, it is.
Everything has an invul.
Yep.
AP is mattering less and less and less, and now this thing has the potential. I mean, as a world eater, chaos lord. I mean, I'm going to pull up the actual numbers here. I think it gets 4 base attacks. Hateful assault is 5. So just that alone, I mean, you can do a banner of rage to give a +1 attack. So let's say 6 best case scenario. I mean, if you roll every 6 to wound kills a blade guard event, or these things aren't even getting saves.
Yeah.
It's completely bypassing the invul. And even if they do get saves, even if you don't roll the 6, it's just still flat 3 damage.
And that's
Neg
huge.
2 flat
I'm
3
loving to seeing
damage.
the flat damage because, like, don't get me wrong, and I think everybody's kind of in the same boat. But D3 is so iffy that you can't make a full plan around it. So when you're starting to get flat 2, flat 3 damage, it just makes
Yeah.
everything so much more concrete when you want to do something.
You can make a plan and not whiff the dice.
And
And then the other
and
thing
that's one
too,
thing about Karn I've always hated. I hated that D3 damage.
yeah, I can't badmouth Karn, but
Oh
I'll
no, I can't. I'm just bad
empathize with what
mouthing
you're
his
saying.
axe.
Okay,
Gore
the
child. It's not
Gore
gore father.
child.
It's
You
gore
can't.
child. You're the little one.
It's
Just at
the
least make it
child.
flat 2. Give him flat 2. Do it.
It probably will. It will
Yeah,
probably get that. But the other nice thing here is it's a neg 2 axe, and you have the strat for 1 CP to put it to neg
exactly.
3.
So neg 3
So,
there.
if there's stuff that's sitting in Terminator armor or whatever, and set to defend being a thing where you can get like, or not set to defend, there's a certain terrain that lets you get +1 to your saving throws in combat. So it's like there's ways to get like 1-up
Yeah,
save and to bring that down to a 4. And I mean, if you're running this also, definitely keep the Exalted Champ buddy nearby so that you can reroll those wound rolls.
no,
You
true.
want to fish. He gets past the break point of he's at strength 6. Without the T5 round, he's wounding on 3s.
Yeah,
And, if you're picking up all the dice, if something has an obnoxious, like a 3-up invul or something, just pick up all the dice and just roll for those 6s because it's 3 mortal wounds. It's a blade
yeah,
of wounds, too, so mortal wounds don't go away.
yeah.
If it's 9 mortal wounds, if it's a squad of 5 Primaris, 4.5 die.
Exactly.
And then how scary is the one dude swinging back at you? Like he's not going to win that.
Yeah, and then you're
So
fighting again.
yeah, sure, why not? So I think as someone who has loved World Eaters for a very long time, I think the Faith and Fury has really started to give this army a a unique feel,
Hmm.
and not just walking around waving your World Eaters banner high above you.
Exactly.
You know what
It's
I
like,
mean?
oh, you're colored red,
Yeah,
but you're like everything
exactly.
else. But at least now, like they're starting to feel what, yeah, like you said, they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see what comes from the new book and stuff like that. I mean, I think everyone's sort of thinking 3 wound Terminators and 2 wound Zerkers is
Oh yeah. Oh,
going
it's
to
gonna
be
be
pretty great.
ridiculous.
I think I have 60 Zerkers, and I think I would run 3 squads of 20 if that was still a thing. But
Oh,
Plague Marine's
hands
capped
down.
at 10,
Yeah.
so I think we can expect that to happen. But
Yeah, especially related to wounds, because like you say, you start running 20-man blobs, you're looking at 40 wounds, and I think that's what it is. They're trying to
with a
make it a
Dark
faster
Apostle,
game. What's that?
with a Dark Apostle, so
Yeah.
you get all 5-up impulse.
Oh man.
Um, but yeah, I mean, CSM Corn. I think it's if you want to be successful with the World Eaters and stuff, I think
Mhm.
you really need to nail and have down your combat phase because there is enough in this book, and just get the reps. I mean, make a list and just play it, and see how it feels, and you'll know what tweaks to have. But I mean, the army has the tools.
No, and it does, and it's one of those things that a lot of times people don't want to take the time to experiment with them. They're like, oh, well, they're just close combat. You're just going to get shot anyways. And don't get me wrong, like, I don't want to discourage people from playing. It's like, chances are, yeah, it's going to happen until you can find what works for you. Use the stratagems that works to your advantage. And like I said, use these little tricks that you may not know of that hopefully in this episode you kind of learned from. Like, for the longest time with the whole attack, consolidate, attack again. Like I always overlooked it. Or when you're in the middle of battle, you don't think of it. You might be like,
Yeah.
because you want to move on to your next fight. It's like, well, no, take the time, do your measurements, do your setups properly, and it will change the game for you. It will
Yeah.
win you games that normally you would have lost because you didn't know you can move those 3 inches, tag another unit. Because if you didn't
Yeah.
do it, then you were going to get shot down because you weren't tagging anything.
Yeah, force the fallbacks, and don't quit on the list. I think that's
Hmm.
just such a common thing where people lose a game, and the
They get
list.
discouraged. They start changing it all the time. Like
Yeah,
I'll be honest, like I was kind of guilty of that myself, where I was changing my list around too much to the point where I didn't learn what the core list could do, because it's like, oh well, they got shot off, so why am I even using them? It's like, well, no, you went the wrong edge board, you went towards the wrong opposing units, and of course that's why it didn't work. You just need to do another game plan, and you need a good solid 5+ games to really decide, do you like it, do you not?
yeah. I mean, stuff's gonna die, and it's
Hmm.
not never gonna be the stuff you want to die,
No.
no matter how hard you try. And I think it just you really want to look at your game afterwards and think, did you use this unit to its fullest potential? Did you miss out on a stratagem
Hmm.
that you could have used that would have made a difference? Like try and just make the list function and don't just immediately change it because
Exactly.
there's a whole aspect of just learning your list. I mean, the last tournament we had where I played White Scars, I probably played 15 games before that tournament.
Yeah.
And when you do that, even, White Scars, I'm not going to say that, they're an amazing army. They're so strong. But, getting a feel of what things can do, what they can take, where they can go, and all that is super important. And you'll
Hmm.
never learn that in one game. And
Yeah.
the other thing, too, is talking about stuff getting shot off and everything. Just make sure you're playing on tables with adequate terrain
Yeah.
because they've been very blatant about their stance that this shouldn't be World War II style 40K.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to be running across a no man's land and getting pelted by shots. They
Exactly.
don't want people playing that game. So learn the tricks and just don't give up on the list. Start with the stuff you like, and then realistically look at it and say, did I use this to my best? And what could I do differently? And just try to keep the list together and
Exactly.
improve upon it. And don't listen to haters, man.
No.
There's so many keyboard warriors out there that are just going to look at tier lists and stuff and totally discredit armies because reputable names did. And
Exactly.
it's all context. Just because someone doesn't think they can win LWO with it doesn't mean you can't bring it to your local gaming store and have great games with it. So
Exactly. It's
don't,
all
don't
about the fun of it, and that's what it is. It's just you don't want to be meta chasing because at the end of the day, it's not going to be super enjoyable for you, and it's probably not going to be super enjoyable for your opponent. Play the game, have fun, and just
yeah.
enjoy it, and just yeah.
You'll never get good switching meta chasing because
No,
you're always
God,
going to be
no.
switching your army. So
Exactly. All right, so we're pretty much at the finish here. So I do hope that you guys enjoyed what we did here with the Khorne Faction Focus. If this is something that you guys do enjoy, and if you're still listening to us babbling on an hour and a half later, write in the comments. Be like, hey, we enjoyed this, and we would like to see this faction. Because already we were kind of talking, and we both played Death Guard, and we're kind of thinking, hey, maybe we can kind of throw around another faction focus with those guys. So again, if it's something you're enjoying it, leave a comment, leave a like, tell your friends about it. And that tells us that you're enjoying it, and it makes us want to do more on each faction and just kind of give you guys that information like we're doing now, stuff that you might not have realized until listening. Because again, it's until you talk and until you listen, until you try, there's so many combos out there that you can be overlooking that can make you not like this army because you just didn't know.
yeah, or you let the internet tell you
Tell you
otherwise.
otherwise.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but
But no, thank you very much, Kira, for jumping on for episode 2.
Danny, it was great to be
Any
on,
any,
man.
any chance to talk chaos, right?
Oh, buddy, you know what.
Exactly.
It's been great to actually deep dive into corn stuff because they have sort of fallen by the wayside, I think, and
Hmm.
been a victim of the internet bullies, if we
Oh
if
my
we want to call them that.
yeah.
But I do think there's a lot of great here, and if you're interested in corn, uh, definitely, as Danny said, jump into the Discord, post some comments, talk about it. We'll talk all day. We're in and out there all the time, and no idea is a bad idea. You know, but
Exactly. But
thanks for
no,
having me
in
on,
the
man.
exactly. But in the comment section, or not the comment, my bad, in the description section, I'm going to have links to our Discord, which we've kind of just set up about a month ago, but people are very active on it. Like here said, if you have any questions, anything at all, one of us or the guys in the community will be able to reach out to you guys, give you information, just have a good old chat. There's also going to be links to our Facebook page and Instagram page where you can kind of just keep up to date with stuff that we're doing around here. A lot of times it's just hobby projects. We let you guys know when there's some tournaments around if you're in the local area. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's just like we started this podcast. Just bring the community together, get people chatting, get people on board painting. We have nights where we are on Discord just painting, shooting the shit, just having a good time.
Yeah, we're not trying to be an elitist community by any
Oh
stretch.
God,
Whatever
no.
your interest in the hobby is, there's a place for it on our Discord. I'll never sit there and tell you a unit's bad, don't run it. And just come on and whatever you're into, just come into the Discord, tell us what you're about, what you like, and let's just make a nice little community about it.
Exactly. So once again, thank you for everybody checking in. If you enjoy what we like, leave a comment, give it a like, have a subscribe, share us around, and until next time, have a good night.